I went from being a national sales manager with a massive team to starting all over again. So when you say climb the ladder, Ricky, my mortgage career looks like chutes and ladders, bro. Like I took the ladder to the top and then I was there and I was dancing around. And then all of a sudden 2008 came and I went, whee!
Welcome to The Growth Mindset, the podcast for ambitious real estate and mortgage professionals. Hosted by Adam Crosley and Rick Riddle, this show dives into entrepreneurial strategies, sales techniques, and mindset hacks designed to fuel your career growth. Get ready to learn from top producers, gain actionable insights, and start your journey towards success. Here's your hosts, Adam and Rick.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Growth Mindset Podcast. I'm Rick Riddle with my co-host,
Adam Crosley.
How you doing today, Adam?
Doing awesome, brother. Doing awesome. The snow is melting in the North Country, and spring is in the air, man. I'm looking forward to an awesome day and an awesome summer.
Awesome. The snow is finally melting. It's getting hot in Florida. It was 90 degrees last week, so it was a pretty hot. But we have a guest, as we seem to have guests every week. Very excited about that. I'm proud to introduce my partner, another co-founder of Crown Home Mortgage, Bob Deiorio.
Hey, everybody. And Adam, Rick, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, Bob.
Well, thanks for being here. So
I'm super excited to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit. Obviously, I know you pretty well, Bobby, and tell us a little bit about you and your journey into the mortgage business. Obviously, you and I started in the business around the same time, but I think you have a pretty cool story to tell. So why don't we start there, and then we'll talk about how we can help others.
Quote of the.
Do you want to? As you guys know, we have a sponsor. Which is me. It seems to be I'm the one self-sponsoring our podcast at this current moment. By the way, if you are thinking about sponsoring, we do take sponsors. So if you're a company that's related to the growing, we'd love to. But right now, we're sponsored by Use the Ladder, a Use the Ladder book that I authored, which is really the subtitle is 16 Quotes of Wisdom to help you dominate mortgage sales. Honestly, it's been sales quotes that I've used all throughout my career, whether it's me personally or coaching others or training others. Every quote has a backstory to it, as well as a what I coined executionable, not a real word, but it's a real word in this book, item that you can take away and apply it to your business. So check out usetheladderbook.com. And by the way, if you use Ladder10 as your discount code, that way I know you're listening to this podcast, you will actually get 10% off on that book on usetheladderbook.com. You also buy it on Amazon, but if you go to usetheladderbook.com, you'll actually save more money. So as you guys know, I take a quote every day that's what I think is pertinent to the today's topic. So one of my favorites from chapter 11, a pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, and an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. And I think about Bobby, one of the reasons why we're partners, there is no more positive person in this business, no one that sees the mortgage business as the glass half full versus glass half empty. So I thought it was a perfect quote to introduce Bobby with. So welcome, optimist glass half full, Bobby.
Again,
I just want to know where the other half of the glass went.
The other half is filled with air, or I drank it. One of the two. Again, Adam, Rick, thank you guys so much. I admire what you're doing. One of the biggest things we can do for anybody is take our life experiences and share them with others so they can cultivate and grow and learn. And who knows, if we reach one person that might be going through something and they find something of value in what we're doing, we win. Right. And that's really why we're here. We're here to make the world a better place and to help people. As I love to say, all ships rise with the tide. I'd love to share my story, Rick. And it's one that goes back long before I even know what a mortgage was. I mean, when I was a kid, I grew up in a really humble town. It was Hopatcong, New Jersey. We grew up in a very small house. It was me, my sister, my brother, my mom and my dad, 3 dogs, 2 cats. But it was home, and there was a lot of love in those walls. And the one thing that I knew growing up in a lower income family was that I wanted to work my butt off to have a better life and to provide for myself and my family as I grew up. And that started really, the biggest influencer in my life was my stepfather. My stepfather had married my mother when I was 9 years old, and kind of he always worked, and he always encouraged me to work. So I was about 11 years old when I got my first paper route. And we used that paper route as a chance to really bond. Because if you know anything about newspapers, on Sunday, the paper is about that thick. And I needed my dad's help to deliver those papers. So he would open up the hatchback. I would sit on the tailgate. He would drive me around. I would deliver all my newspapers. And then I would take my dad out to breakfast at the Dunkin' Donuts in Bud Lake, New Jersey. And it was just awesome bonding time for me and my stepdad. And, he's no longer with us, but I know every day he shines down on me and he kind of gives me the strength to always stay optimistic, even with challenges. And so, I evolved quickly from delivering newspapers. Then I went to making pizzas at a little restaurant in Hopatcong, to working at Macy's, and then found through a bunch of failures an opportunity to work in men's clothing. And this is where the true sales aspect of who I became came into play. I was poor. I didn't have enough money for a prom tuxedo. So my junior year, my first prom, I approached the owner of this tuxedo store, asked him if he was hiring. He said he wasn't. And I said, well, listen, I need a tuxedo for my prom, and I really don't have $87 to pay for it. So we cut a deal. He said for every one of my friends that I brought to his tuxedo store, he would give me 10% off my tuxedo. So that year, I think I brought 82 people to his tuxedo store. And not only did I get a free tuxedo, he hired me. He hired me because he said, wow, you needed something, and man, you found a way to get it, and we profited. So he hired me. Fast forward to senior year, again, working for the guy, was making $321.05 a week while working, going to school. I was an athlete. I just couldn't get enough of the people industry. I love the interaction with people. That senior year, I think we did about 1,000 tuxedos directly from my efforts of marketing to local high schools, meeting other athletes, giving out coupons with my name on the back, because now I was doing it for a bonus. He was like, listen, you bring enough business in, I'll give you 10% of what we profit on the business you bring in. So I saw another way to make some money. So I did. I knew college kind of wasn't my thing, guys. I'm not that learner. You guys are both very intelligent gentlemen, and I admire people who go through college. It just, for me, it wasn't there. I wanted to get right into business, and, a very entrepreneurial spirit. I just struggled with something, and it was the connotation that I was a salesperson. I used it as a negative, and it used to offend me when someone's like, wow, man, you're such a good salesperson. I thought they meant, you're a bullshitter. I didn't realize what it meant because I was too young and too immature. But the success story behind that tuxedo store was I turned 19. I was still making $321.05 a week. I wanted the tuxedo store. So again, being very entrepreneurial, I reached out to some friends that had some money, and I put together an investor, and he put up the money. I put up the time. We bought the store from the guy who brought me into the business. And the year that we bought the store, I went from 1,000 tuxedos to 4,000 tuxedos that year, because I took the drive and the energy I had as a 19-year-old individual to really push to get to become successful. And, him and I were partners for a couple of years, and then we parted ways. Is the business, we opened up 3 or 4 locations. I was all over northern New Jersey. I don't think there was anybody that didn't rent a tuxedo from Formalities from 1987 until 1980, no, probably 1992. And then I got out. So I think when I look at the journey, right, and the growth, the mindset of growth that I had at the time, it was when I got to the top of what I deemed to be a mountain, because at that time I thought I wanted to be Pierre Cardin or, Christian Dior, I was like, I needed another challenge. So I went from working for that company, then becoming self-employed, to then going back into the marketplace. I tried working for my uncle. I tried working for my grandfather. These are great, but they're really good at giving thumbs up, not so much at swinging hammers. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to work for my grandfather. He was a carpenter, mason. That wasn't my gig. I tried fiber optic cable splicing with my uncle. I mean, we ran fiber all over SNET through the New England area, up through Connecticut. That was the deal. Like, we busted our butt. And I enjoyed that time. But in order to work for him, I had to leave my house Monday, and I didn't get home until Friday, and I had just gotten married. So that wasn't going to work. That was in 1995. So I had to reinvent myself again. Tried insurance, guys, just not my thing. Sitting behind a desk, didn't like it. Tried calling outbound leads, didn't like it. I tried the insurance side of the business, like the claims processing side of the business, because that's what my father-in-law did, and that's what my ex-wife did. So I wanted to fit in. I'll try what the family does. Hated it. Saying no to people's claims and sitting behind a desk from 9 to 5 absolutely crushed my spirit. So the interesting part of this story and how I got up the ladder was, one of my best friends, Scott, was getting married, and we were doing we knew that he was going to be asking his girlfriend at the time to marry him on this weekend. So Scott was there. His brother was there. His brother owned a mortgage company in Morris Plains. And my buddy Scott was kicking me under the table, like, why don't you, this guy, you're the best sales guy I know, talk to this guy. So he kicked me under the table, and I asked Mike if he was hiring. So he hired me, and that was in October of 1997. And one of the things that I preached to the guys and gals that I work with was, in October, I was there for 7 days. They gave me a prorated draw for the last 7 days of October. And then I took a draw for the month of November. And then I never took a draw again in my entire mortgage career. I never went in the hole. I was never behind. I was always ahead. But the way they taught back then, for those of us who don't know, they were a lead shop. They did a lot of mail marketing to people who had loans with other higher interest rate companies. We kind of tricked them to call on us. So they did. So I had a script. I knew exactly what to say. I still know it to this day. And all I needed to do was get people to talk to. So what I did, Rick and Adam, was I dove into their closet, where, if anyone knows anything about audits, if you get audited by the Department of Banking and Insurance, you have to keep your files on the premises, even your turndowns and your cancels. I went into the cancel room where everyone had said, I don't want a mortgage from you. Thank you, no. And I started calling every single one of them. Every person that had said no to them, I called. And just on sheer enthusiasm and knowing how to sell, emotional link, and to find a way to connect someone to something that's really impersonal. A mortgage is a very impersonal thing. It's money, right? But what's behind it is the most personal thing that you can have, other than getting married and having a child. That leap of faith into buying something and holding a note for 30 or 20 or 15 years. I called every one of them at least 3 times. And when I say boxes, boys, they probably had 40 boxes. No one else that worked for the company went into that closet, only me. And from the first full year in the business, which was 1998, I was loan officer of the year. I was number 1 that year. I was number 1 in 99. And in 2000, I was recruited to run the first, back in the day, taboo subprime branch for Wells Fargo in the country. That was me. So my neighbor was the regional vice president. His name was John. John showed a lot of, he had a lot of trust and faith in my ability. Started the first branch that they had. We were right in on Cherry Hill Road, Rick, right in Parsippany, and we built it from there. And again, my success story there was we didn't have a way to get business. We had a ton of what we call now A-paper loan officers that only focused on people with good credit like you two. I focused on everybody that couldn't get a loan, and I called every single one of them. I mean, I had people who couldn't qualify. I would convert if I can. This is way before the CFPB, but if I could convert them into an FHA loan, that's where I put them. Subprime was like the last landing spot. Like if the only way I could get a yes was to go to Mortgage Lenders Network, then that's what I did. But I started with FHA, and to be responsible, you had to find the best alternative way to get someone financing, and I was able to do that. I enjoyed a lot of success there. I was the number one subprime branch for years, even when it caught fire. And we were in a non-banking state, gentlemen. Make no mistake, west of the Mississippi, no one knew who Wells Fargo was. They had just merged with Norwest, and they gave me a lot of liberties to grow and to train guys and to teach dialogue. I went out to places like the local auto dealerships. So when they turned someone down for an auto loan, I found out the people who owned houses because they checked that little box. And back then, you could share information. There was no Privacy Act. So if I went to the general manager and he was Adam, hey, Adam, my name's Bob Deiorio. I work for Wells Fargo. How many turndowns did you have this month? Well, I had 35 of them. How many of them owned homes? 15. Great. Can I have their names and numbers? I might be bringing them back to you. So I found a way to refinance people to give them money so they could buy cars. Then I went to bankruptcy attorneys and said, do you have any clients that fit this criteria? And they said yes. And then I went to divorce attorneys and said, when people get divorced, how does that work? And he said, well, usually there's a property that has to be refinanced or sold. And there's usually two buys on each side or a rental. So my agreement was I would go to the divorce attorneys and say, if your client needs a credit report for a rental, because back then you did, we would pull it and I would pay for it. I would present the credit report to the individual. And then the person that wanted to buy, I got their application. So I found creative ways because back then, the A-paper loan officers were the only ones going to realtors. They didn't want Bobby and his team of well-trained assassins going into the real estate offices because we would have taken that business. They would have come to us. And A-paper was like sliding down a slide. It was a joke, right? Yeah. I worked on the stuff that was very, very hard to get done and, built my work ethic that was already trained in me, but I built a branch of people that knew how to source business. So how to be successful 101. Because remember, I told you I went from a cancel box, shop to now, how do I get a mortgage? I got to go get one. So then I went to all the A-paper people, solicited them. And then I went outside to all the other places to find it, to build a business. This is my favorite stat. In 2001, Dick Kovacevic was the CEO of Wells Fargo at the time. And I was able to deliver $1.6 million of NOI back to the parent company. And that was after all bills were paid. Nobody was doing that. I was. My basis points per transaction was around 233. So what my claim to fame was for Region 13, my team covered the fixed costs of every loan officer in the region. So if you were an A-paper loan officer and you had an office, we generated enough rev to cover all of our fixed costs. It was amazing. And I think the thing that I was proud about is the most proud of is as a part of a team. When you get to a certain level, kind of used to being recognized because you were pretty good at your job. The recognition was cool. Breaking bread. I would go to the craziest President's Club trips back then, and I was the poorest dude in the room. I figured out a way to double every year until I peaked at around $40 million. And I think when I look at the ride, the only thing that differentiated me from anybody else that came through the door was I had a plan. I had a couple of mentors along the way that taught me work ethic first and then taught me the mortgage business and how to get it. And then I had a couple guys that taught me the polish that I needed in order to be able to present myself in front of a room of attorneys, a room of, whether they were divorce or bankruptcy, to present in front of the board of realtors to talk about alternative lending and FHA. FHA was very taboo back then. Nobody liked it. Nobody wanted to do it. And I was there for a long time. And I left that business as the crash was imminent. The people that ran Wells kind of knew that the Deutsche Banks of the world were going to stop buying that stuff, and we weren't doing enough FHA to sustain us. So I went to another company, and my team followed me. And, for the 2 years before 2008 hit, we were killing it. I mean, we were national. I got to work for some of the most incredible minds in the mortgage industry. Peter Norton, Rick, what was Rick's last name? Rick Floyd, to mention a few. These guys were, they were pioneers in the industry, and I got to work and learn with those guys. And I met some of the greatest guys around the country that added to my skill set, and my teams. We got better and better and better and better. And then after 2008 hit, I went from being a national sales manager with a massive team to starting all over again. So when you say climb the ladder, Ricky, my mortgage career looks like chutes and ladders, bro. Like I took the ladder to the top, and then I was there and I was dancing around, and then all of a sudden 2008 came and I went, whee! Now, where normal people would have left, and many of my staff and people that I loved exited the mortgage business, I didn't. I doubled down and I bet on Bobby. And I went to work for Countrywide because my regional at Wells a couple of years later had moved over there. And he said, I'd love to have you. Let's see if we can recreate, the goodness that we had. Great. If you guys remember, right after 2008, kind of what went on, or right in that timeline, they had merged with Bank of America, bought Countrywide. And I was the pariah business card holder in the mortgage industry. If I walked into a real estate office and I had a Bank of America card in my hand, they were like, you're part of the problem. When I worked for Countrywide, nobody wanted to talk to me. But that's what really started me learning how to overcome objections, right? Because it was, listen, everybody was writing business that helped contribute to this. It's not that company or that company. It was the industry. Now we have changes in the industry. Why won't you give me a chance? And I just kept coming and coming and coming and coming. And it wasn't until right after I joined Residential Home Funding, Dave Stein, Tom Marinara, Roberto Lupe, and Julio Salazar, that I met Mark Kaplan, our other partner. And they did the same thing. They winded the back of Bobby up and cut me loose and said, go get business. And now there was no shackles. I could go after realtors. We could go after divorce attorneys, bankruptcy attorneys, financial planners. I added CPAs to my repertoire. So I had dialogue for all of those. And I taught each person that worked for me a way of sourcing business. And you don't have a realtor? Let's go to an open house. We became the place of open house sales blitzes. But I never really had a culture where we had meetings, structure. Insert Rick Riddle. Rick, what year did you join RHF?
2011.
When I look back at the mentors that I've had in my life, aside from the obvious ones, right? My dad, my grandfather, Dave DeBonis taught me at Wells. You were probably the most important because you had a structured sales meeting. I got to go to a meeting. I got to listen to stuff that was going on. I mean, you always had quotes, which you'll always be the quote guy. I may do Wednesday Wisdom, but I kind of bastardized that off of you, right? I'm not going to lie. Listen, everything that I do, I've stolen from somebody. I just
You and me both. They're not my quotes.
No. I just polish that turd and spin it around, sell it as my own.
Yeah. As presented by Bobby D, right?
Correct. I knew that the one thing I lacked was true structure, gentlemen. And I think Rick brought structure to our team because before that it was just pew, pew, like, go get business. And we were like, what the hell does that mean? None of us knew. And because of the 2008 scare and, I remember looking at my ex and going, I think that year, 2008, I made $28,000, boys. I think my taxes on my home at that time were like 19,000. So I was the biggest determined or driving force behind me is fear of failure. Bobby D is not going to fail, right? I'm always going to bet on myself, and I'm always going to know that whatever I have to do, I'm going to do it because I know what's on the other side, right? So insert Rick Riddle into my life. So now Rick and I are working together, and we worked together successfully for many, many years. And we always had a talented sales team around us. We had great meetings, high energy. That's where I really learned the true value of friendship and culture, right? Like how to cultivate the right salespeople, how to keep them inspired, how to keep them motivated. When I started, I had like this team that we put together of people who were craving for what you gave us. So, I will always say the hardest decision I ever made in my mortgage career was to leave residential home funding and go off to another company to try to further my career. Because again, I thought at that point I had reached the pinnacle of where I could be. I need to challenge myself. And it was hard because the first 2 years that you and I were not together and I didn't work for you directly, I did well financially, the best I had ever done in my life. And this is important. Very well financially. I was miserable. Because I didn't have the company that I worked for. Great company, by the way. This is not anything against them. It's the first job I ever quit that I was actually had a lot of respect for the bosses. I love the guys that I worked with, but the fulfillment wasn't there because they were in Long Island and I was in New Jersey. And if anyone doesn't know the country, as the Northeast as well as I do, to get to that meeting was 2 hours. So he'd have a monthly sales meeting, but it was a real pain in the ass to get there. And we didn't have Zoom back then or Teams or any of that stuff. So I was missing that. So, for whatever reason, the Lord smiled down on me and was like, my perseverance saw through. And then I got a phone call one day from this rabid Philly animal fan who is one of my top 3 mentors in my life to say, hey, why don't we put the band back together and let's go on this journey together. Let's start something amazing. And the truth is we did. And it all comes down to, I fell in love with being a salesperson. I fell in love with structure. Along the way, I've had many coaches, a lot of the ones that Adam had. I didn't know Carl White and I didn't know Kevin Gillespie until, Rick, you introduced me to them, but I did the core. And I know you remember, I was an avid believer in that. And I got tired of getting yelled at every day, so that's why I exited that. But I took everything they taught me and I built what I affectionately refer to as the blueprint to greatness. You want to be a good loan officer? I'm going to show you how to do it. And, with your help, we did. I mean, you and I built some of the biggest and baddest mortgage producers in our marketplaces. And over over my career, I think my legacy is not going to be how many mortgage loans I closed, how much money I made, how many people I helped. It was how many lives I changed, not just the people who bought the houses, sold the houses and made money, but the loan officers that we taught the business to that are now financially independent, that have the lifestyle that they've wanted because we took the time to teach them in an industry that doesn't normally teach very well. They're like, here's a book, go get it, or, go make money. And if you don't write loans, we're going to fire you. That was never our sales culture. And I think all of that, it's a culmination of a lot of things, but you're right. I mean, even in 2008, when I was terrified when the collapse happened, I knew someday, we were just destined to do something amazing. I just had to believe and had to keep working.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's one of the reasons why I use that quote is I don't think there's anybody, as I'm listening to your story, positive mental attitude can cure a lot of things. And I think about as you're talking about your story, I think a couple of points in my mind that that immediately came to mind is one is you learn from a lot of people, right? You had a team of coaches throughout your career, right? Like, and I think of an athlete, right? Like a football team, they have like 30 coaches, right? They have an offensive coordinator, a linebackers coach, an offensive line coach, a passing coordinator, a quarterback coach, right? Like, and you learn a little bit from everything, but you make it your own. And I also think that, this business, and when the three of us know it, and everyone listening knows, you get a lot of no's in this business, a lot of no's, a lot of rejection. And it's how you deal with that rejection or how you don't deal with that rejection is how you can be successful, right? And using that football analogy, imagine being a cornerback. And Bobby, I think I know you a lot.
I
You were
was
a cornerback, right?
Yeah.
Imagine being on a field and getting burnt by a wide receiver giving up like a 60-yard play, only to know that you have to do it again, right? In front of a crowd of 100,000 people. That's pressure, right? That's rejection. And I think that positive mental attitude, constant improving your business, improving your scripts, reinventing yourself, are the secrets to success, right? And I just think of the amount of times that we get. Actually, there's a quote in my book. Is
Are you in a double quote us?
You
only get one.
Again,
we're in for a bonus.
We're bonus quote.
Bonus quote. Let's
from
go.
usetheladder.com. It's the only quote from a fictional character. Rocky Balboa said, "It's not how hard you hit; it's how hard you get hit it and keep moving forward." Right. And as I think about your story and your journey, right, like you got knocked down a bunch of times, especially in the subprime world in 2008. And you know what? Your positive mental attitude, probably kept you going, but you just kept on moving forward. And I have a business coach at one time said, things in life will be thrown at you, but the one thing and there's a lot of things that you can't control, but the one thing that you can control is how you respond to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And if
that's
you
great
respond to
advice.
them if you respond to them with the glass half full, chances are you'll be okay. And it may sting, right? We've all got punched in the face, and we all took a look back, no matter whether it was a loan, a realtor, a recruit, a resign, someone that you thought left you, and you feel like you got punched in the face, and your eyes are watering because your nose stings. And guess what? Within 20 minutes, you're back to normal if you have the right positive mental attitude, and you know that your journey is about moving forward. It's not the end. And so I listen to your story, and that's what I kind of think of is that I'll say to the listeners on this podcast, guess what? If you're in the mortgage business, and if you're listening to this, you're not completely brand new, you probably got punched in the face once or twice. And sometimes 2008, 2023, you probably got punched like a punching bag. But if you're listening to this podcast, it means you're still in the business, probably, and you just kept moving forward. And if you can have the right positive mental attitude with a business plan, relying on others to get you through. I think the other thing you said was culture is huge, right? Like I think it's a huge thing to work at a company, work with people that are like-minded, right? Like you want to keep a positive. The easiest is so funny. I was 187 pounds going into college. And by like sophomore year, I was like 250. And you know how I gained that weight? Hanging out with fat people. You know how I lose weight? Hang out with skinny people. Right? It's really not that hard, right? No. So you want to be a winner in this business? Hang out with winners. You want to hang out with losers? Hang out with complain every Monday morning around the coffee cooler.
Yeah.
I guess it was
the water sink like a rock. You'll go down with all of them, and all you'll be at the bottom of the ocean looking up at us going, what happened? Why are they doing so well and I'm not? And there's two things. There's a quick story that pops into my mind as you mentioned that, Rick. It's funny. Growing up without a lot of money, all my friends had cool bikes. They had like Mach GTs, GT Mach 1s and all that cool stuff, Diamondbacks. And we couldn't afford that. So my stepfather went, and you'll hear me refer to him as my father because he raised me from 9 until the day he passed. He's my dad. We didn't have the money. So we went to a garage sale. This is a great story, guys. He picked up this frame. Right. And he painted it white because he knew I wanted a white bike. And he went and got replacement Mongoose stickers and put stickers on the bike where Mongoose stickers were. We didn't have the internet back then. So he had to go to a bike shop and figure out where to put them. He brought that bike home to me. didn't know the difference, whether it was a mongoose or not. That's what I delivered my papers on. But I knew it when I went to pull a wheelie that it didn't weigh 5 pounds. It weighed like 45 pounds. So riding a wheelie on this thing, but my dad loved me enough to do that for me. So I felt like I fit in with the rest of my crew, right? That had the cool bikes. And, perseverance came from football, if I'm being honest. And you know this to be true, that I hire primarily people who are athletic, people who are in the military, people of great disciplines, because I'm going to ask you to do things that are difficult. Well, I'm going to tell you what was difficult. What was difficult was going to Hopatcon High School from 1987 till I graduated in 1990 and not winning a football game. There were 28 of us. We played Ironman football, and we lost every game we participated in. But we were at every practice. We were at every game, and we were playing against teams that we couldn't possibly beat. There were times we were playing their freshmen in the fourth quarter, but we were so out of gas, the freshmen were moving the ball up and down the field on us. But perseverance is doing, like, I was the hardest guy. I worked my ass off, whether somebody was watching me do it or if I was by myself doing it, because I wanted to have pride in the fact that I did everything I could to be a good athlete or a contributor to the team. I also ran track, and those things helped shape the perseverance piece of why I was able to overcome. Like, if I look back at 2008, when it would have been easy to quit, I was like 2008. I for 4 years, I got my brains kicked in playing football, and I didn't quit. Now I look at this and I go, I can't quit. Quitting is not an option. I got to figure out a way to push the ball forward. And I think, Rick, the things that shape us, it's funny, there's little moments, those little things in our childhood that really shape us to make us who we are, And like you said, hanging out with skinny people, we're hanging out with skinny people the rest of our lives. And that's just the way it is, because I don't want to be the coffee cooler person. That guy's never going to beat me, ever. You can put all 5 of them at the coffee cooler. They're not going to beat me. Not straight
They're water coolers, by the way. I know I call it a coffee cooler. I don't think the coffee cooler exists.
Whatever, water cooler, coffee cooler.
And the other thing I'm going to bet you about. So in 1986, so what you're saying, one of your businesses should have been having your dad make these mongooses and you go sell them on Canal Street.
Listen, I could have done that. My dad was not ready. He wasn't ready. We could have had a bootleg business. I could
Dad, to make 100 of these mongooses?
Yeah, thanks, Dad. I appreciate that. You couldn't go the extra mile, buy 20 of those stickers. I could have made a fortune going to yard sales and buying bikes for $6.
Until they're popping wheelies and they can't do it because they're 40 pounds. I remember those days.
My forearms are that big from riding bikes that weigh 50 pounds. Very funny. But yeah, like I look at what what the industry faces now, and listen to the newbies. Some of our top producers in the industry are having breakdowns and things like that because they can't cope with their success going backwards, because they were so high during COVID that any step backward shattered them. No, it's not a step backward. You're just regrouping. That's all this is, guys. Always, always, always keep your focus forward. I mean, it's just so easy to get wrapped up in negative stuff. And Adam, like I said to you, there are times when, the lights go out. I don't let them stay out very long. I lick my wounds and I get right back to it, because the truth is, the next person who calls me could be one of our top producers. Yeah. And if I'm throwing shade, I just ruined their day. So I'm a gas guy. I'm all gas, no brakes. I want everybody as high as I am, running. I have to maintain that energy level because people need that from you. And if that's your gift, you have to share it. So
I've known you for a few years now, and I've never seen you have a down day. I mean, one of the things that's so impressive to me, Bobby, is one, your work ethic. You just show up every day, but you show up at level 12 every day, like off the charts all the time, 6 a.m, midnight, whatever I run into Bobby, just like
is that a plug for the new Spinal Tap movie?
Let me tell you something. The best thing that you could say to me as a producer was no. Yeah. I had a guy. I'm going to protect the innocent here, Rick, because you know him too. He was a crotchety old man. He was a realtor, and he used to say to me, "I'll never give you a deal." And I would go to every one of his open houses. And before I left, I'd say, "I'll see you next Sunday." And then every Sunday I would show up, his facial expression would change, but I'm not going to stop.
Yep.
I'm just going to keep going because eventually you're going to give me business. And eventually he did. And
like the force of erosion.
Listen, dripping water hollows a rock. And I think the harder and harder and harder you put your blinders on, it's easy to end. It's not just putting the blinders on. Guys, I'm going to expose myself a little bit. I'm a vision board guy. And I don't know if you guys know this or not. Just got married, as you know, last week. My wife and I are now working on our vision board for our life together because I've always had one. And I shared it with her for the first time. She saw it, and it shows pictures of my kids graduating from college. My second one's going to graduate in 2 weeks. It shows a picture of my son following his career path and what he was very into. It shows a picture of a boat that looks strikingly similar to the one that I own. Everything that you want in life is worth prioritizing, visualizing, and then manifesting. But the manifestation doesn't come by itself. You don't just say it in the universe and it brings it to you. You got to work for it. And, you're the only thing that I love other than you that came out of Philly, Rick, is Rocky Balboa. And the one thing, his story is so shining because, who takes a beating from Clubber Lang and comes back and wins the next one, right? Because he had to reinvent himself. I've been able to reinvent myself as the market has challenged me, had to reinvent myself as the market has challenged me. If I didn't reinvent myself, I'd probably be in the car business or, maybe back in the clothing business. But I'm going to tell you, perseverance is what kept me in the business that I love and around the people that I love. And you guys inspire me every day. People that I don't even know on social inspire me every day. When I see a producer doing 300 million, that's inspiring. I never aspired to do it because I didn't have the systems in place to do that. I would have burnt my head off, but I've always made good money doing what I love to do and bringing people with me, elevating everyone that's around me. Because for me, again, when everyone's standing around the box, when I'm getting ready to go into the earth, that line's going to be long because people are going to be like, yo, this guy changed my entire life. And that's how I want to be remembered. I want to be the coach. I want to be the guy that taught. I want to be the guy that pushed. I want to be the guy that inspired. And the truth is, can't do that if you got your head up your ass. You just can't. Yeah, you can't do it.
Rising tide elevates all ships.
Yeah, man. Amen.
Dude, Bobby, thank you so much for carving out the time and talking with us today. This was absolutely awesome.
This was a pleasure to spend this much time with you too. I love what you're doing. I think it's exceptional. I've enjoyed them. They're awesome. And the fact that you carved out a little piece for me to share my story, it's a blessing. I love you guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Awesome. We appreciated having you. Awesome. So I will farewell and say till next time we will hear you. Thank you for listening to the Growth Mindset Podcast with myself, Rick Riddle, Adam Crosley, and our special guest today, Bobby Deiorio, co-founder of Crown Home Mortgage. If you want a little piece of that high energy, definitely reach out to Bobby. I'm sure he'll, whether you join Crown or just need a pick-me-up, he's always available to boost your spirits and always entertaining. So thank you so much for joining us. I will sign off by saying, Eric Bowers, take it away with the legal stuff.
You've been listening to The Growth Mindset, hosted by Adam Crosley and Rick Riddle. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your colleagues. Stay tuned for more actionable insights to fuel your career success. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and do not necessarily reflect the official policies, positions, or opinions of Absolute Home Mortgage Corporation or Crown Home Mortgage. The content is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered professional advice or an official endorsement by either organization.